Did you know you can cut overworld grass with the ability Hyper Cutter, like this? Or what about the fact that you can get stuck in an infinite torturous battle with two Wobbuffet with the ability Shadow Tag, because neither of them can escape the battle, and leftovers will keep them alive forever? Or what about this? The Q-Charm ability had a glitch where it made shiny Pokemon appear in the wild 25% of the time, making this the best shiny odds in all of Pokemon history. And that is just 3 facts of the 77 that I'm going to cover in this video. Here's 1 fact for every original ability in Pokemon. Let's do this. Stench. Out of all of the abilities, Stench is the first one in index order. They picked the smelliest ability for the #1 spot in the ability list. Drizzle. Drizzle was once a legendary ability used by Kyogre, a literal weather-controlling legend. But just a few generations later, it was given to Pelipper, a random bird from the same region. So I guess Pelipper is a legendary Pokemon now and can stop and compete with Groudon. Speed Boost. Speed Boost has a weird rule. It will always activate at the end of every turn in battle, except when you fail to run away. Probably the most critical time for when you actually need a Speed Boost. Battle Armor. Battle Armor's Japanese name is Kabuto Armor, not named after the Pokemon Kabuto, but after Kabuto helmets, which explains why the Cubo line, Type Null, Phalanx, and Berserker all get this ability. They all have Kabuto helmets. Sturdy. Sturdy used to be very bad compared to now. It originally only prevented one-hit KO moves like Fissure from working, but now it stops Pokemon from being one-shot by any regular attack too. So it went from being one of the worst abilities to one of the best. Damp. Damp is the only ability shown to activate in the Detective Pikachu series, where Wooper with the ability stops an Electrode from exploding. Limber. Stunfisk, an Electric-type Pokemon, has the ability Limber, which prevents it from being paralyzed. But that actually makes it completely useless, since Electric types already can't be paralyzed. A derpy ability for a derpy Pokemon. Sandveil. Sandveil has an effect outside of battle. If your lead Pokemon has this ability, wild encounter rates drop by 50% in sandstorm areas, since Sandveil boosts evasion in sandstorms, which is pretty cool. Static. Despite the fact that this ability says it uses static electricity to inflict paralysis, it still works on ground-type Pokemon, even though they're supposed to be immune to electricity. So what's going on there? Volt Absorb. Ash's Pikachu in the anime successfully used Electro Web on Zayora, even though Zayora only gets the Volt Absorb ability, so it should have been immune. This is Pikachu aimed for the horn all over again. Water Absorb. The ability Water Absorb is more evidence that the legendary beasts might have been EV evolutions before they were revived by Ho-Oh. Because, get this, Vaporeon's base ability is Water Absorb, and Suicune's hidden ability is also Water Absorb. And it's the same with Jolteon and Raikou both having the Volt Absorb abilities, and Flareon and Entei both having the Flash Fire abilities. So basically, the legendary beasts were EV evolutions confirmed. Oblivious. There's a weird glitch in Generation 4 where a Pokemon status condition, like Sleep or Poison, will disappear from the HP bar if their confusion is cured by Oblivious. So it's like the Pokemon forgot it has a status condition. How stupid can you be, Slowpoke? You forgot that you're dying from poison, or that you're asleep. Cloud9. It's pretty hilarious to think about how Rayquaza wasn't even needed to stop the clash between Groudon and Kyogre in the Generation 3 games, because technically, a measly Psyduck with the Cloud9 ability could have done the same thing by stopping the weather, because Cloud9 has the exact same effect as Airlock. So meet your new weather god, Psyduck. Compound Eyes. The ability Compound Eyes has a hidden effect outside of battle. If a Pokemon with this ability leaves the party, the odds of wild Pokemon holding an item is increased. So it makes this ability pretty useful for finding items that can only be obtained by wild Pokemon, like the precious lucky egg found with a Chansey. Insomnia. The descriptions for Insomnia state that the Pokemon with this ability are quote-unquote suffering from insomnia. So here's a list of every Pokemon that's in a constant state of suffering because they can't sleep even if they wanted to. That's literally me. Color Change. The ability Color Change was the first ability shown in Pokemon animation by Madison's and Alexa's Kecleon, as well as the only abilities to be shown in the original series in general. Immunity. The first Pokemon to get the immunity ability was Zangoose, because Zangoose is based on the Mongoose, an animal that is naturally immune to snake venom. So take that, Seviper. Zangoose here can't be poisoned by your poisonous fangs and venom. Flash Fire. Only in Generation 8, if Pokemon with the Flash Fire ability leads your party, it'll force a Fire-type encounter 50% of the time. Only if a Fire-type Pokemon exists in the area, that is. So I guess Pokemon with the Flash Fire ability are just beautiful to other Fire-type Pokemon because they attract them. Even you, Heatran. Shield Dust. Shield Dust protects the user from additional effects from attacking moves, which means that all Pokemon with this ability are immune to being frozen and flinching, since the only way to inflict those conditions is through an additional effect of a move. So all these Pokemon here cannot be frozen or flinched. Legends. Own Tempo. Own Tempo is an ability that is important to Rockruff, because only Own Tempo Rockruff can evolve into Duskform Lycanroc. And fun fact, an ability patch item cannot add or remove this ability from Rockruff. So once Own Tempo, always Own Tempo Rockruff. Suction Cups. If a Pokemon that leaves a party has the ability Suction Cups, it will boost fishing encounter rates outside of battle, because it's suction cupping the fish Pokemon. Intimidate. Intimidate was an attack in the trading card game before it became an ability, with it being Sailor's base attack in the Awakening Legends Japanese expansion, right here. Shadow Tag. In Generation 3, having two Pokemon with the Shadow Tag ability sit out against each other meant that neither Pokemon could switch out, which was kind of a bad thing because Wobbuffet gets this ability. And since Wobbuffet doesn't learn any attacking moves, you can literally be stuck in an infinite battle with the item Leftovers, even while struggling. Because of those games, Leftovers would heal back the recoil damage from struggle. Rough Skin. The Rough Skin ability stacks with the Rocky Helmet item, causing a whopping 25% chip damage every time a Pokemon hits the user with this Wombo combo. Wonder Guard. For being the most broken ability in Pokemon, Wonder Guard has a pretty short and vague description. It literally just says, super effective hits, and that's it. You gotta figure it out by yourself after that. Another fun fact is that there was a glitch in Generation 4 where the move Fire Fang was able to hit through the Wonder Guard ability, even if the target wasn't weak to Fire-type moves. So at one point, Fire Fang was like the best move in Pokemon ever, because it could hit through Wonder Guard. Levitate. All forms of Rotom have the Levitate ability, which is good and all, except for Fan Rotom, a flying-type Pokemon that's already immune to ground-type moves. Another derpy ability for a pretty cool Pokemon, actually. Effect Spore. The ability Effect Spore almost destroyed a city, because in the movie The Power of Us, Team Rocket actually dropped a solution of Effect Spore on Fula City, which literally triggered a toxic gas that turned into a devastating fire. So this ability is pretty lethal. Synchronize. In the Diamond and Pearl remakes, if your lead Pokemon has the ability Synchronize, all Pokemon in the Grand Underground will have the same nature as that Pokemon, which makes it pretty useful for building competitive Pokemon, I guess. Clear Body. As of Scarlet and Violet, the Clear Body ability has an item counterpart that does the exact same thing, the Clear Amulet. I wonder if the Clear Amulet is made of Clear Body Pokemon. Creepy. Natural Cure. In the same movie The Power of Us, to counter the dangerous effects of the Effect Spore gas fire thing, a scientist named Torin created a cure by using Natural Cure and a handful of lemon berries. Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod is an ability that draws in and gives immunity to electric type attacks, which makes Ash's victory against Blaine's Rhydon even more ridiculous, because for one, Rhydon is a ground type Pokemon, and for two, Rhydon eventually gets the Lightning Rod ability, making it double immune to electricity. So this just makes no sense. What the heck? Also, another fun fact is that if the leading Pokemon has this ability, it will cause the player to receive twice as many phone calls. Serene Grace. In a double battle, if both your Pokemon uses Fire Pledge and Water Pledge together, it'll create a rainbow field effect that doubles the chance of additional effects from moves of any Pokemon on the field. And this actually stacks with the ability Serene Grace, basically giving your Pokemon quadruple the chance of landing secondary effects, all except for flinching, because that would be pretty broken. And fun fact, with these conditions, you can have a 40% chance of freezing the target with any Ice-type move, making this the highest chance of freezing a Pokemon in the entire game. Swift Swim. Anorith and Armaldo both have the Swift Swim ability, even though they're weak to the water typing. So basically they are moving fast in the rain because they're literally dying from it. Chlorophyll. Funny enough, the same goes for Oddish and the Chlorophyll ability, because Oddish is known to avoid the sunlight from its dex entries. So with its ability, it's literally trying to outrun the sun, since Chlorophyll boosts speed in sunny weather. Illuminate. Lumineon doesn't get the ability Illuminate. Lumineon. Illuminate. Another fun fact is that for 20 years, Illuminate had absolutely no effect in battle. This was only useful for its outside effect of increasing wild encounters. But as of a recent update of Scarlet and Violet, it has the same effect as Keen Eye in battle, which prevents accuracy drops and ignores the move Double Team. Trace. There are very few abilities that Trace can't copy, but Wonder Guard isn't one of them, which means that you can technically trace a Shedinja and turn your Pokemon into something completely broken, basically making a Pokemon Exodia.
Exodia! Obliterate!
Huge Power. There are two opponents in Pokestar Studios with the ability Huge Power, Black Belt and Monica. So basically all Black Belt trainers and people with the name Monica are very strong. Let me know in the comments if you're a Black Belt or if your name is Monica. Poison Points. There's only one Pokemon that isn't a poison type that has the ability Poison Point, which is Seadra, which actually makes a lot of sense because Seadra has a ton of Dexentry Stain that has poisonous barbs all over his body. So yeah, that's why it's Poison Point. Inner Focus. Not only does Inner Focus prevent flinching, but as a Pokemon Sword and Shield, it was buffed to block Intimidate as well. So now it's the perfect counter to both Fake Out and the ability Intimidate, two of the most staple strategies in competitive Pokemon, making Inner Focus really good. Magma Armor. The ability Magma Armor in the later Misjudging games has additional bonus effect. It burns up any items thrown at the Pokemon, rendering them useless. So basically, Rock Throw on a Slugma is still super effective against it, but throwing a Gravel Rock at it has no effect, which doesn't make that much sense because aren't you just still throwing a rock at it either way? Water Veil. The ability Water Veil is one of 5 different Veil abilities, but doesn't quite behave like the rest of them. Because Flower Veil stops allied grass types from having their stats lowered, Sweet Veil and Passive Veil protects allies from being inflicted with sleep and poison, and lastly, Water Veil only protects the user from being burned, so it's more of a selfish Veil. Magnet Pull. Magnet Pull is the only ability you can see activate in the My Pokemon Ranch game, because when you focus the camera on Probopass, it may sometimes drop to the ground and pull all the Steel-type Pokemon in the ranch to itself, which is pretty cool. Soundproof. Soundproof is the primary ability for Mr. Mime, which actually makes a lot of sense because Mr. Mime is a mime and is supposed to be completely silent. Rain Dish. Surskit is the only Pokemon with a Rain Dish ability that doesn't have a dish-like part on its body to store water in. So how does it store water with its Rain Dish ability? Through its eyes? Sandstream. Since Sandstorm boosts the special defense stat of Rock-type Pokemon by 50%, any Rock-type with this ability basically gets a base stat total boost just by entering the battle. So technically, Tyranitar becomes even stronger than a pseudo-legendary Pokemon when it shows up, hitting a base stat total of 650. Pressure. Pressure was nerfed in Generation 5, because before, it caused all the opponent's moves to lose an extra PP per use. But now it only affects moves that directly target the user. So no more PP stalling out your opponent's protects, basically. Big Fat. Back in the 1990s, there were fan-made Pokemon known as Pokegods, and one of them was an evolution of Venusaur called Sapusaur. And the fan-made dex entry for it was stated to have Big Fat, the same ability that Mega Venusaur gets. So it's possible this was actually an early source of inspiration. Coincidence? I think not. Early Bird. Shiftry has a new dex entry that says, legends tell of a bird Pokemon that received divine punishment for its evil deeds and had its beak and wings replaced, which might explain why it briefly had the Early Bird ability in previous generations. It was that bird. Flame Body. Ash's Fletchinder uses Flame Body ability to hatch Noibat's egg. This was the first time in anime history that we've seen an ability used outside of battle. So this is pretty epic actually. Run Away. Ghost-type Pokemon have a hidden effect of being able to flee from wild battles with 100% success, which makes Gimmiglow's Run Away ability completely redundant, which makes 3 derpy abilities for 3, I guess, derpy Pokemon. Keen Eye. In Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, a Pokemon with a Keen Eye ability has a 5% increased chance of finding an item if it breaks a rock in the overworld, which is very niche. Hypercutter. You can cut a 5x5 square of grass tiles in the overworld by using the ability Hypercutter, just like how you can do it with Cut, but this time it's an ability. Pickup. The rarest items a Pokemon with a pickup ability can find are the TM for Earthquake, Leftovers, and the Bottle Cap item, each having a 1% chance of finding at level 100. Truant. Durant randomly has a Truant ability, and no one really knows why. It may be because it's a pun on the words true ant, but it doesn't really work in Japanese, since it translates to lazy. So I guess there's ants out there that are just lazy, I guess, and Durant's one of them. Hustle. Hustle's Japanese name is Enthusiasm, so all Pokemon with this ability are the type to be easily excitable, including you, Remoraid. Just look at you. Look at you being all excited. I can see it. Cute Charm. There was a glitch with the Cute Charm ability that made it so you can encounter a shiny Pokemon 25% of the time. And I actually tested this out in this video right here, where I encountered the same shiny pattern Spinda back to back to back to back. Plus, not only can Puzzle and Minus synergize in battle, but Flaaffy and Electrike can too, since they both have the plus and minus abilities as their hidden abilities. Didn't expect that dynamic duo, a sheep and a wolf. Minus. Plus and minus used to only work if both were on the field, making them pretty bad. But in Generation 5, they got buffed. Now, 2 plus or 2 minus users can trigger the boost, and moves like Gear Up and Magnetic Flux powers up allies with either ability as well. Forecast. You could actually have a cast form in the wrong weather form in Generation 4. If the opponent used Gas or Acid to shut down his Forecast ability, cast form would get stuck in whatever form it was in, even if the weather changed, which makes no sense to this Pokemon on a molecular level. So basically, cast form is a liar.
Liar!
Sticky Hold. The ability Sticky Hold is known for blocking item theft from moves like Thief and Covet, but starting in Generation 5, those moves can actually steal from a Pokemon with this ability, but only if the move knocks them out. Only then they get to claim the quote-unquote prize. Shed Skin. Due to an oversight in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, if a Pokemon wakes up using Shed Skin, it'll still be affected by Nightmare, even though it's no longer asleep. So it's effectively a daymare. That sucks. Guts. The infamous Thunder Armor that Ash's Will gets in the anime can actually be explained by the Guts ability, since it boosts the user's attack stat when inflicted with a status condition. So basically Pikachu paralyzed it, making it become stronger, like a Super Saiyan. Marvel Scale. Cynthia's Milotic has always had the Marvel Scale ability, but it wasn't taken fully advantage of until the remakes, where it was given a Flame Orb, letting it automatically become bulky after just one turn. Look at that bulky Milotic with that marvelous scale. Liquid Ooze. For the longest time in Chinese, Liquid Ooze was known as Mucus, which is pretty nasty. But I wonder why Lickitung doesn't get this ability, because it has Liquid Ooze all over his tongue. Overgrow. Out of the 3 basic starter abilities, Overgrow's Japanese name is the odd one out, because Blaze and Torrent translates to Raging Flames and Raging Rapids, while Overgrow is just fresh greenery. Kinda sounds like a salad brand. Blaze. The ability Blaze in Spanish translates to Mar Llamas, which means more flames. But if you read it like an English speaker, it looks like it says more llamas. More llamas, Charmander! More! Torrent. This is what the ability Torrent looks like in the Pokemon manga, which looks pretty insane. Like, how's that Piplup doing that? Swarm. The Japanese name for Swarm is Mushi no Shirays, which literally means bug notification. And if you didn't know, this is actually a Japanese expression that refers to a gut feeling or intuition. So all these Pokemon here are very wise and perceptive. Rockhead. Even though Struggle is a move that has recoil, the ability Rockhead doesn't remove the recoil damage caused by it. Drought. Drought is one of the very few abilities that has its own theme, and this is what it sounds like. Whoa. Arena Trap. Arena Trap's English name is actually a pun, because arena comes from Latin meaning sand, so it's basically a sand trap, which makes perfect sense for Pokemon like Diglett and Trapinch, both Pokemon that thrive in the sand. Vital Spirit. It was impossible to get Vigoroth in the Pokemon Dream world because of his Vital Spirit ability, since Vigoroth only gets his ability, meaning that it can't sleep, literally. It's impossible for it to dream. White Smoke. The ability White Smoke has a hidden effect outside of battle, where it decreases the encounter rate of wild Pokemon by a whopping 50%. Pure Power. Pure Power's Japanese name is Yoga Power, which explains why only the Meditite line gets it rather than Huge Power, which does the exact same thing. They're basically doing yoga. Shell Armor. The ability Shell Armor was basically predicted by Misty's Cloister in the trading card game, where it has the Pokemon Power Shell Armor. Cacophony. Cacophony is an unused ability from the original games. No Pokemon has it or can use it, but it's nothing special because it has the same effect as Soundproof, which makes a Pokemon immune to sound-based moves. And lastly, Airlock. Besides abilities that are specific to a Pokemon's identity, like Wonder Guard or Color Change, Airlock is the only ability introduced in the original games that is still exclusive to one Pokemon, Rayquaza, which negates weather effects. But it literally does the same thing as Psyduck's Cloud9, so it's also not that special. And Psyduck here could also be the true god of the Weather Trio as well, stopping Groudon and Kyogre from their epic clash. All hail Psyduck! And if you enjoyed this video and want to watch more Pokemon facts, watch my 1 fact for every original Pokemon video right here, or my 1 fact for every original move in Pokemon right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Yeah.